Hey, what's up guys? Pallab here from nothingwire.com. Nikon last night announced their brand new portrait lens, the 105mm 1.4. It's Nikon's fastest 105mm lens, and it's called the Nikon AFS 105 F1.4 ED non-VR lens. Now, it does not actually call non-VR, but I'm telling it non-VR because you have to know that it does not have a VR at 105mm. But anyway, we'll come back to that. This one is a very heavy lens, just under a kilo, 985 grams, and only the US price is revealed now, a massive $2,200, which come just under about 1.5 lakhs Indian rupees. Now, knowing Nikon, they'll probably release it around that price here in India, so we are looking at least 1.5 lakhs for this prime lens. The UK price is also not yet revealed, although these are now listed in all these sites, Nikon India sites, US and UK sites as well, even the Europe sites. Now, let's first look at some of the quick specs of this lens over here. And I told you the pricing, the focal length, and the maximum aperture 1.4 up to it goes f by 16. It's a very heavy lens, 985 grams, and it has metal and everything. Also, there are 14 elements in a 9 group as opposed to the less element in the 85mm 1.4 Nikon lenses. Out of these, 3 are extra low dispersion lenses. It also has nano coating to reduce the flaring and ghosting, and also has fluorine coating. That's a great deal. Now, fluorine coating actually repels your dirt, water, and liquid kind of thing when they come and stick to your lens. They cannot actually stick to your lens. It's easier to use this lens outdoor. You do not have to wipe your lens too often. And what it has, of course, AFS meaning silent autofocus. SWM is what Nikon calls it. Silent wave motor. It also an internally focused lens, so your lens length won't change while focusing. The minimum focus distance is slightly more than the 85mm 1.4. It's 1 meter as compared to about, I think, 0.85 meter of the 85mm 1.4. It takes much bigger filter than the 85mm 1.4. The 85mm 1.4 takes 77mm. This one takes 82mm, just like the newer 24 to 70 VR, and does not have vibration reduction. At 105, it does not have vibration reduction, but we'll come back to that. What are the advantages maybe or any disadvantages? So these are the main spec sheet of this lens. All looks very good on paper. First thing is, you notice the letter E right after f1.4. That meaning that this lens is an electromagnetically operated aperture blade lens, as opposed to the older Nikon lenses which had mechanically operated aperture blades. Now, Canon lenses have had this technology since very long. I think even before 1990. Nikon has never had that. They've always had the mechanically operated aperture blades controller. This one is one of the newer, fewer lenses that has electromagnetically operated aperture blades. Now, there are advantages over the mechanical. First of all, the difference. The mechanically operated aperture blades is where the lens has to go back to the camera body to be able to operate the aperture blade. The camera body provides the information, exposure information. But here, in case of electromagnetic operated, the lens actually has a small motor inside of it, which kind of tells the lens or tells the aperture blades how much to close and how to operate. That is more accurate because you're coming in-house. The information is coming in-house. It does not have to go to the camera body and then get the information. But there's a big disadvantage for those who have the older Nikon camera bodies, like D90, for example, D80, D70s, those kind of bodies. And also, if you have the entry level D3XXX series of bodies, like the D3300, 3200, they would not get the aperture information at all from the camera body. So that's one of the problem with this one. But if you have the newer bodies like the 750, 800, 7200, and even the 500 series, 5000 series, then this will work just fine. Now note that 105mm in a DX body will become 1.5 times, that is 158mm. And also, if you use it on Nikon 1 body, which is a 1-inch sensor, it will become 2.7 times. It will become, I think, about 282 mm. 1.4 would give you shallower depth of field on paper than an 85 mm, because uh, the more focal length the lens is, generally the compression is more, the difference between the subject and the background rendering is more. However, as compared to the 85 mm, as I told you before, the minimum focus distance is longer for the 105, which means that you have to stand farther than you have to with the 85 mm. So that advantage might just be negated. It is a very heavy lens, a 1 kilo lens. I'll never carry it with me while just going on the street and taking portraits. I'm just gonna get tired. My hands are gonna get tired too easy. Very heavy lens. The 85mm 1.4 weighs about 600 grams. The 85mm 1.8 weighs 350 grams. 350 gram, 400 gram is an ideal weight, because you also have to carry the 1 kilo of your DSLR as well. So it's very heavy that way. Coming to my biggest grudge, the absence of VR, or vibration reduction. It's an image stabilization technology that nowadays lenses generally are trying to incorporate. Now, why it's important? It's very, very important at 105 mm, because the more telephoto a lens is, the more it is prone to vibration, or more it's prone to give you blurry pictures. How? Generally, you know that there's a rule of thumb which says that under low light, you can only go, if your lens does not have VR or IS or OS or VC, for example, you can only go you can only reduce the shutter speed as far as your focal length. So that meaning that when you're using a 105 mm lens, even under low light, if it does not have VR, the maximum shutter speed you can go down to is 1/105 mm, which is not exactly the best case for some of those motion blur photos. Let's say you want to shoot a headshot on a bridge, and you want to show the cars moving and those streaks of light. No, you're not going to get that, because at 1/105 mm shutter speed, the cars, almost all the normally moving things will be frozen. And also at 1/105 mm shutter speed, and well, you have f1.4, a large aperture, so light's not going to be issue most of the time. But it's really good to have VR, because then you could probably go down to about let's say, even if it has 4.5 stop of VR, you could probably go down to about 1/60th of a second. That might not make much of a difference as far as light coming in, but that might make a difference in the noise, because you then will be able to lower your ISO. Also, it's a heavy lens, so when operated for a longer period of time, if you do not use a tripod, you might quickly get tired, and that time you might not be so accurate. So when you're around that 105 mm mark, then probably you might just not get that tech sharp photos. But I seriously think VR is now should be incorporated in all lenses, and that has always been almost a deal maker for me as far as Tamron lenses goes, because they kind of incorporated their VC in all lenses, even on a 35 mm lenses. Now, a lot of people say that when you have VR, then your lens elements move, and that kind of reduces the sharpness. If you think that is the case, just switch off the VR. Then it won't. Then your lenses won't move, right? So am I excited? Yes, definitely, because 105 mm is a great focal length, specifically because even at 85 mm, although people say 85 mm is the perfect focal range, but then 85 mm is more suited for half body portraits. If you want to have headshot also at time, the 85 mm kind of has to go little too close to introduce distortion, slight distortion on the face. The 105 mm would not have that problem. But if you're using it on a DX body, or even on a Nikon 1 body, you're working with 158mm, then it almost exclusively becomes a headshot lens. 282 mm is like too long for a portrait anyway. So for FX, it's perfect. For DX, it's kind of only headshot. Still, 1.4 105 mm should be great.